Hi, everyone. We have our live studio audience and our worldwide audience. So there's all these hands waving. Yeah, I always felt that Jesus would tell me for years that he said, don't get too concerned about the world. It's a virtual world. And then right before the pandemic, he was saying, it's time for a digital revolution, which is just a remembrance that it's a virtual world, that the world's not outside of our mind. So we shouldn't get too ticked off about the world. If we forgive it, then we can be happy. So here we are. Lisa, Francis, we're here with all of you to share the joy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tabula Rasa with us. Beautiful.
Yeah. It's just beautiful. I was just talking with Lisa and Francis, and I think back around, I think it was around 1999, I had this inspiration to do a newsletter, and so I made the first issue, and I called it Tabula Rasa, and it was a beautiful, beautiful issue, and it had a woman with both of her hands outstretched, her fingers up, and she had her head back, and there were flowers falling all around her, and that was on the cover. And then it turned into a symbol, like with Jesus, everything is a symbol. It was a newsletter of one issue. That was back in 1999. That was how long it ran. There was no second issue, even though that issue, I know, touched Lisa. She got a hold of it, and she was praying in her house and reading it in her God room. And every day, day after day, that one issue went a long way. But that was 22 years ago, and that was quite an experience.
Yeah, we were talking this morning just how profound. Because I remember when I met you, you know, all these shifts and changes were going on. And just like, you know, you were this living demonstration. And just this little newsletter for me as I was just going through all my healing and letting go, just reading it every day. I read it all the time because it was more about the mystical experience, about how you can live your life and be happy all the time and living in the unknown and not having a care for the world. And just how, you know, I would read this Tabula Rasa. I actually could cry about it. And almost like I'd read it in reference to being with you. Like I would be reading it and think, and I'd watch you. And it was like you were living this newsletter that had appeared. And I'm like looking at it, this one issue. And I'd be like, oh, just to imagine that I could live and in this spontaneity and be free of cares and worry and be happy all the time. And that newsletter just was like my Bible, really. I felt like it was just like, oh, I want to read about this experience. And just today, it just feels so beautiful. Like this, seemingly this mystery school is this gift from the Spirit for me just to practice that and to really be in this experience of praying and not knowing, truly not knowing, and being open to be shown every day what He would have me do. You know, what is your will for me, Father? You know, to use me and to be truly helpful. And just in this wide open, truly helpful experience, really not knowing. There's no curriculum. I was telling you guys today that the lessons have been profound because every morning it's like Jesus' curriculum. He's showing us the curriculum every day, and it's so fun because I don't even go ahead in the lessons. I can't wait to wake up in the morning and say, oh, what does Jesus have for me today to open to and to practice myself? So it's like this continual opening that I'm experiencing in this unknown, and just such a gift because we didn't even know we were going to do this till yesterday. You know, this continual expansion of jumping into the unknown. And you guys here at the Mystery School, I mean, every day, is kind of, it's expanding us. It's stepping into just kind of trusting Jesus at such a deep level. You were saying this morning about faith, that this is really just a practice in faith. And, it's the continual daily process of jumping into the unknown, which is an honor, really.
Yeah, that is a beautiful launch into spiritual awakening, is faith. And you might remember Jesus had said, after he returned, after the resurrection, he returned to the apostles, and they were all coming up to him and talking with him, and it was Thomas, doubting Thomas, who basically, had to come up and touch Jesus's arms, because that's where the wounds had been. And then Jesus turned and he looked at Thomas and said, "Blessed are those who have seen and who believe. Far greater blessed are those who have not seen and who believe." That's the faith. That's a very recent workbook lesson we just had in the workbook of A Course in Miracles. I will not use the body's eyes today. That's pointing to faith. How else are you going to live your day without using the body's eyes except through faith? Through just living in what is given in the moment, of taking no thought for the morrow. Jesus said 2,000 years ago, how would you live if you took no thought for what tomorrow would bring? How would you live if you followed what Jesus said 2,000 years ago? Take no thought for what you shall wear or what you shall eat. He was giving a practical gateway into the experience of faith and living in the present moment. And someone wrote in, well, I've focused for the longest time just on my body, but now I want to know how to go into the holy instant. I want to know how to live in faith without the thoughts and the needs for what will I do. And it does remind me of the workbook too, lesson 135, where we've referred to that lesson so many times, but Jesus says, a healed mind is relieved of the belief that it must plan. All of us have been raised, all of our programming from the ego and the past has said, you have to plan for the future, and if you can get good at planning for the future, then you're a successful, functioning human being. You're a successful, functioning citizen. What is the purpose of education if it isn't for planning for the future? What would be the point of learning things, learning skills and abilities, if it wasn't for the survival of the body in the future? If you had the awareness that you have everything and are everything right now, what would you need education for? What would you need to upgrade your skills and abilities for? What would you need to learn more of if you realize that you have and are everything right now? That's the third lesson of the Holy Spirit in the text, where you have the realization that having and being are the same. If what you have is what you are, why would you seek for more of anything? And there's a very famous section in the later part of the text called Beyond All Idols. Some of you might remember that section. It's interesting that Jesus starts it off with, what is an idol? Do you think you know? Because most of us know that the Bible said, hold no idols before the Lord thy God. That's part of our commandments. But what is an idol? It's not talking about a golden statue. It's saying that the world of images is the world of idols. And when you focus your mind on any of these images as being important, more important than God, more important than spirit, more important than the present moment, you are focusing on an idol. And then he goes on to say, he starts off with, what is an idol? Do you think you know? He goes on to say, an idol is for more of something. It does not matter more of what. So more is the concept of, is the idol. When you want more of anything, when you want more of even an experience, or more of an object, or more of an image, it doesn't really matter more of what. You are not in the moment. You are not in the contentment of the holy instant. And that was one of our questions. We had some questions today, was, how do I live this? How do I enter into the holy instant? And we always are talking about guidance, just living in the given, what is given. Every single day, every single lesson. You were just sharing how, our Susanna was sharing with you how there's such peace in not having to think about decisions, making decisions in the future, just accepting what's given.
Yes. When we normally operating the way we operate in the world is we think we know something, and we think that we can be in control, and it's almost like a good thing to know that we're in control. But gradually on this journey, that's what Susanna and I were talking about, you realize actually to be responsible for anything brings up fear, because that is not the reality, that we are responsible for the world of images, including ourselves, including the behaviors, including other people, including the awakening. It actually is the opposite of the reality, because we are responsible for our mind. And when we think we are responsible for anything else, is a direct denial of this one responsibility, and inevitably there is fear. So in the daily life, we can walk around and think, it's a good thing I can decide on this, I can choose, I can make choices, I can do whatever I want. But at some point, we realize, wow, it actually there is an unconscious fear that just sit there, and we don't know how to truly feel the peace. And I feel like this is the reason that we even come together in the weekend, because somewhere inside we know we're here to listen to the thoughts and the voice of the Spirit, and that gives us peace. And this is what we have an experience of, to be able to join together and tune into the voice of the Spirit. It gives us peace. And this can be lived, and this can be an experience, that peace can be always here for us and always available. But it is such a habit to tune in to no other voice but the voice of the Spirit. And what David was referring to was Susanna and I were talking, because she has been, she was married. She is married still, but she need to make a lot of decisions around her house, around what she does, around the daily decisions. But recently, she has an experience where she was given so many things to do, seemingly, but they were guided tasks. And when she can let herself relax into it, let her day just from the moment she wakes up in the morning till the moment she goes to sleep, just to realize, oh, I don't have to make any of the decisions about my day anymore, because they're all given to me. And then she tapped into this deep peace she hasn't experienced for a long time. And that, what we were talking about was that Jesus said, don't think you can understand any of it until you pass the test of perfect peace. So we're not able to really understand what this is about, what guidance is about, what the Spirit is about, what autonomy is about, until we actually have an experience of perfect peace. Then we understand what brings us peace. So this is truly the central message of the Course, which is let the Spirit guide you and have an experience of the peace. Even this morning before I came, I had a few minutes before I came to the studio, and I thought I'll just flip open the book just to see whether Jesus has anything to say before I came. And the sentence was, you'll be told of everything. That's, if there is one message, you will be told of everything. There's no other message. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how Jesus says this Course is not a course in knowledge. The goal of the Course is not knowledge. The goal of the Course is peace. And inner peace, peace of mind. So if that's the goal, and we're told that it can only be experienced in the present moment, then that again points to opening to an experience of what the present moment truly means, because that's where the peace must be, in the present moment. But if you've associated thought with the past, or if you've associated thought with the future, then all those thoughts about the past or the future are the blocks to the holy instant, to the present moment. So A Course in Miracles gives us a means called the miracle and a means called guidance, basically tapping into guidance. And there seems to be a lot of beliefs around even guidance. We did a whole retreat one time in the past couple of years on guidance. And the whole focus and the emphasis in the retreat was that guidance is always just to bring you into the present moment. It's never for anything in the world. Oftentimes people talk about, I want to be guided so that I can be financially sound and set, or I want to be guided to a particular partner or to a particular set of circumstances or a particular situation. That's not the purpose of guidance. Guidance is simply to release all thoughts of the past and future and come into a state of pure being in which you realize you have everything and are everything and have always been everything in this simple state of mind. When we say simple, even the word simple has many meanings in the world, but it's almost like Jesus tucked this very simple experience, almost if we use the metaphor of the body, like under your nose. So as you chase around and look everywhere for it, it's under your nose. It's Jesus is laughing, no, don't try to make this too complicated. It's closer than the air that you breathe. It's closer than your breath. It's that close to you. That's what the kingdom of heaven is. It's closer than anything that you perceive in this world. So, to me, that's where the allowance and permission comes in. And once you come into this acceptance, then you are simply observing and watching the world. You're not trying to judge it. You're not trying to take a side. You're not trying to have an opinion. You're not trying to have a preference even. You're just letting all things be exactly as they are. You're just really accepting that all things are exactly as they are. So this is something that can be experienced, but it's not something that can be transferred in words. We're just letting the words come from the experience. We're letting them, like the flower gives off its fragrance, we're just sending that fragrance off and extending it. But the joy is in the moment, and that's what we have such gratitude. That's where the glory of God is in this very moment. It is also very practical, because when you're in the moment, then everything is given you that you are to share and to extend. If it's a word, if it's just to be silent, if it's just to feel the grace of God's love, that is everything. So it's not understandable, as Francis was saying, you can't first seek for understanding and then arrive at the peace. You have to arrive at the peace, and the understanding goes together with the peace. Peace and understanding go together and cannot be found apart. So that takes it off of the wheel of trying, like a hamster, trying to chase after it. Everything we've done as a human being has been about productivity. It's been about self-improvement. It's been about make the world a better place. Make yourself better than it was in the past. But it's a trick. Who you are in the moment is not really a matter of better or worse. Who's judging? Who's judging? Not God, who knows us as we are. It's only the ego that is trying to put up this smokescreen. So what a joyful time we have. This is our life. We are in Tabula Rasa. And even though the newsletter, one issue came out back around 1999, we're still in the moment, because this is really the only moment there ever is or was or will be.
It's quite a ride, because it really is letting go and just watching. It's a surrender just to, I love that, what you say, because I remember, that's like on page 11 of the course. I remember reading that for the first time. It said, you are and have everything right now in complete abundance. And I remember reading that, and at the time I really didn't believe that at all. And I thought, you are and have everything right now in complete abundance. And it's like this, just sitting here listening to you, I remember just reading it over and over and over again, that was the truth, and that it's an experience. It's not just the words. It's an entering into that holy instant too, to feel that grace, to acceptance, accepting that is who we are. So yeah, I just feel like it's a spontaneous. We were talking about how we're in this kind of like, there's waves going and the sand, when you're in the waves, how the sand is moving, and it's this purification that's happening, as we're just riding in these waves. It's like this wave of healing that's continually happening, but it's pulling us into the present moment. That's what I feel for myself, is just like, that's the only thing that, it's the only thing that really is valuable. Like everything else is a trick. And to be so present and feel the presence of the Spirit and feel the presence of God, and just watching in amazement, watching in the wonder. This morning I woke up and it was like I walked in truly, like it's everything becomes so brand new. There's no past reference to what's happening. So, even just this morning, just this, oh wow, the sun looks so bright today. The trees look so beautiful, and the red was never so red. And just walking through this opening to be shown like a little child, that I don't know the way, and just feeling this love and this grace. And yeah, so it's beyond words. Just, there's no words. I just want to keep, watching in wonder.
And what we really want to do today is come to extreme simplicity and practicality, because you may be listening to the words that are being shared from this state of mind and maybe saying, I wish, or sentimentally, I agree with you. Sentimentally, I agree with the words that are being spoken. But, and the but can be a sense of anger or annoyance or irritation, a sense of disgust, a sense of frustration, a sense of the human condition, the simple frustrations that seem to occur on a daily basis. And so the question you may be asking is like, how come? How come if I am everything, if I was created by God to be everything, how come the frustrations of what seems to be daily experience? So, there's beautiful metaphors in the Course about the sunbeam and the sun, and about the wave, a ripple or a wave on the ocean and the ocean. And that's the whole thing right there, is the belief in parts. What could the sun really know about a sunbeam except knowing itself? What could the ocean think about a ripple or a tiny wave on the surface of something that's so vast? The ocean goes all around the globe, all around the world. And when we believe in the ego, and when we think with the ego, we have this way of thinking that's called parts and whole, okay? And all of us are familiar with this. Like when you bake a pie, the ingredients are the parts, and the pie is the whole. If you have a family, it may have family members that are the parts, and then you have the whole family. Or if you even talk about an atom, and you know that the atom has protons and neutrons, and it has a nucleus. People would say, well, the atom is the whole, and those tiny little parts, protons, neutrons, electrons, are the parts. What Jesus is telling us in the Course is that there is no difference between the part and the whole. That they are actually not different at all. They are the same. And some of you even know the phrase, the whole transcends the sum of the parts. Remember that one? The whole transcends the sum of the parts. What Jesus is telling us is that the whole and the parts are not different in any way. Why? Because there's only one of us. There's only one mind. God doesn't think in parts. God doesn't think in terms of parts, particulars, specifics. Jesus tells us the whole world of specifics was made by the ego. God is abstract love. God is pure love, pure oneness, pure happiness, pure joy. Eternity doesn't have parts. And yet, when you perceive yourself looking at time and space, you must realize that to look at the world with the Holy Spirit is to know no difference between the parts and the whole. So it's a perceptual correction. I always say there's a perceptual problem. You have to first admit you have a perceptual problem. What does that even mean? I have a perceptual problem. If you went to, like a 12-step group, hi, my name is so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, my name is so-and-so and I'm whatever. I have a drug problem. I have whatever. I have a human being problem. And what if you went in and said, hi, my name is so-and-so and I have a perceptual problem? It's basically admitting that you believe in parts and whole. You believe they're different. You believe the parts are different from the whole. That's what the perceptual problem is. It's a fragmentation in perception that's the problem. It's not the specifics of people, places, things, situations That's all based on ego and linear time. So how does this relate to you? We were having a discussion because as we watch the world every moment, we watch the world and we watch what seems to be arising. The only way that you could not be at peace with this world is to believe in the parts. And that's what Jesus calls authority problem. He says, you have an authority problem. Your author is God, and you believe you are the author of yourself. That's what the ego has tricked the mind into believing, that it's the author of itself. And how does that relate to you on a day-to-day basis? Whenever you are upset in any direction or in any degree, it is always because of the authority problem. It's because of the belief that I can author myself. There is no problem and there is no upset in experiencing I am a creation of God. I have been authored by God, eternally authored by God. But we were talking about this idea of autonomy. Personal autonomy seems to be a good thing. That's one thing that the mind has been accustomed to thinking, that it's good to be autonomous. It's good to be an autonomous self. It's good to have autonomy. And then when I went into A Course in Miracles and I looked up the word autonomy, Jesus says, your autonomy is in your creation. In other words, when God created you in spirit, that was the gift of autonomy. In spirit. Being spirit is the true meaning of autonomy. That's how Jesus recognizes God, and that's how the recognition of the I Am presence is remembered, is through the true remembrance of autonomy. And yet the ego has made a world based on personality selves, based on I'll do it my way, like the Frank Sinatra song. You know, even though the song is quite intense, if you know the lyrics of it, I did it my way. You know, we have to come away from that sense of my, and we have to go into thy will be done. Let me know thy will. Let me know eternal love. Let me know spirit. That's where the joy is. The autonomy in trying to believe in a separate self brings about all the struggles of the human condition. Every single struggle that you ever will experience is coming from a sense of the wish to have an autonomous, separate self apart from spirit. So, on the day-to-day basis, this is where we come into guidance, this is where we come into listen and follow. Anybody who comes into our communities, you know, will say, what is this listen and follow? And what does it mean? And I can tell you it's just pure joy, because when you are in listen and follow, you are being sourced. You are in alignment with source. You are saying and meaning in the moment, I would have no separate will from you. You are letting go of control of the world, as Francis mentioned at the beginning. You want peace of mind more than you want to control outcomes. You want peace of mind more than you want to control the body. That's just false responsibility too, when you think, I am responsible for the condition of my body. I am responsible for how I look upon the body in the world. I am responsible for my perspective of the body. I am responsible for my perspective of the world, but I am not directly responsible for the body or any specific situation, because I am here to see the world as a whole. And there's a very famous line in the Course that also says, Jesus says, make this year different by making it all the same. Oh my gosh, that is like the key to happiness. Make this world, this year different by making it all the same is really like if you were going to have a New Year's resolution, that would be the New Year's resolution, is to start to see the sameness of form. And by seeing the sameness of form, you realize you are in the forgiven mind. You are experiencing forgiveness. But as long as you perceive differences in form, that is the wish to have an autonomous perception, an autonomous identity, an autonomous self that is apart from God. So to me, this is fantastic. Why would I want to try to see parts different from the whole? And what would stop me from just letting go into this state of mind that accepts all things exactly as they are, except the belief in sacrifice that somehow something bad will happen if I no longer try to control the world? That's been our experiment with Tabula Rasa, and we're here to share the good news. Basically, the good news is there is no negative consequence to surrendering to God. It's all good. It's all good. God is always for us. God has never been against us. Nothing's ever been against us. We were just mistaken on that. There's the home crowd. They're panning around. Welcome to the mystery school. Welcome to our living room.
Yeah, I feel like with the school, it's how we live all the time. So we've opened the doors for 6-week increments for people to come and experiment and experience that and face the fears and the control and the authority problem. Like, that's the opportunity, is to be able to come and taste this. Just don't take our word for it, to really fully step into that. And that's what all of you guys have done together. We've kind of come in together and said, okay, here we go. And really in the prayer every day to be shown, what is your will for me, Father? And opening up to seeing that the guidance, is just naturally happening in the original yes of every one of you coming here. So it's so wonderful. It's like we've all said yes together. It's kind of like a ride. It's how we live. And it's ever new. Do you have something, Francis, you want to share?
Yeah, we are actually we just passed 30-day mark in the mystery school. So everybody has been here for exactly 30 days. And, when we come together, this is what we're, the only curriculum is to learn to trust the Spirit and learn to listen to the Spirit's instruction for us. And what is gonna show up is that this unconscious eventually would start to bubble up, because it was very heavily controlled, the unconscious guilt, when we are going about in our daily life, set preferences about how we wanted to live, how we wanted things to be. Is really about how to manage these things that cannot be managed, which is the perceptual world. And then when we come together, we're basically just saying, like David said, okay, we don't want to control this external world, and we want to yield our will to the Spirit. What is your will? And we are going to trust whatever show up. And then what happens is there will be a lot of peace and a lot of joy, but at the same time, this authority issue that would show up in different upsets, which has been held under the conscious mind, would also bubble up. So basically, what we're seeing is a lot of the things will show up, like anger, like annoyance, and issues that we don't like will show up. But they are actually the curriculum. If we understand It's not problems that show up for us to get solved. Oh, I don't have a good day today, that's bad. But really, the bigger understanding is these are what has been sitting on the unconscious mind. And once we start to line up to say, okay, only your will, thy will be done, I'm willing, then all this rage sitting underneath that to compete with God's will is going to show up in very tiny, subtle, different ways with people, most likely. But this is what we wanted to share as a context. This is okay. This is the curriculum of forgiveness that is in our face on a daily basis as well. And we're presented with what is actually sitting underneath that are ready to be healed and to be released. And this is very simple. Even the healing is doing it in its own pace as set by the Holy Spirit. Even healing is doing that on its own. So we're just here to give our willingness to say, yes, we allow that.
Yeah, we give full permission to allow everything to come to the surface so it can be exposed. Expressing everything is the way out. I don't know why I was thinking about this one time. This was at the very beginning, years together when I first was starting to listen and follow. And you had given me the opportunity to prepare for this retreat down in Kentucky. I don't know if you remember this. And gas was like $5 a gallon at the time. And I had just started to, open up to listening and following. And David had said, okay, prepare for this retreat. And so I had this whole big plan of everything that I was going to do for this retreat. And I had blueberry pie. I had all these things on the list that I was going to get for this retreat. And so then you and Jason called me and said there's been a change of plans. And you said we were going to actually just stop and grab some pizza and some Coke. So scratch all those plans for a menu that you had for the retreat.
Especially the blueberry pie.
It was that damn blueberry pie. But I went nuts. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was actually Jason was with me. Jason called you, and he just very matter-of-factly was on the phone with you, just saying, well, we're going to pick up some things on the way down, and so there's no need for the blueberry pie and everything. And then I was standing across from Jason, and I heard this torrent of screaming. It was like Lisa was spitting nails. She was more than hopping mad. She was more than angry. She was more than furious. She was so angry that Jason just put the phone away from his ear because this went on for a little while. It just was rage. And then I watched Jason, and you were addressing Jason pretty directly and everything, and I watched a teardrop roll down his cheek as he's holding this phone out and everything. And I thought, yeah, this is what forgiveness is all about. When you have a belief in an outcome, even a blueberry pie, if your mind gets set on any outcome and form, including baking a blueberry pie, that can take all your peace away. Because that's really what I was talking about. That's what an idol is. An idol is something that you want in form, that you believe you'll be happy if you get that outcome, that thing. And it can be a blueberry pie, it could be a relationship, it could be, I want a sunny day instead of a rainy day. It could be anything. But that was very, very healing in the long run.
It was, because I was down at the retreat center by myself, and I felt like I was like this caged animal. I mean, really, I felt so much control and so much rage, and just really it was just like this tyrant of energy. And I just was with it. And then just even like in the prayer, and I remember laying in my bed at night and just was like, just really facing this massive control. And in the prayer too, just like, Holy Spirit, help me see this differently. And even seeing my resistance to asking. But it was just like me just being with it and just really seeing it. It just felt, like out of control. And I don't know, something happened. It was just me laying with it and being with it and facing it. And I remember it was so beautiful because just being able to hand it over. I don't know what happened actually, but I remember that all of a sudden you guys were coming down like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning with pizza and sodas instead. And it was a miracle. It was like, oh my God, just like, just that I could face it and like totally hand it over. Something happened. I don't know what happened, but it was like just totally allowance of me to be like that. And then you guys pulled up in the driveway, and I remember coming out, and it was like you guys were thinking, okay, what's happening in there? Am I burning down the house? What? I came out, I was like, it's a miracle. It's a real miracle. Because it was really just this full permission, even on the phone with Jason, and I remember, and I was screaming so loud I couldn't stop, just the full permission. And then he said, Lisa, it's me, Jason. He kept saying, it's me, Jason. I'm like, F you, man. F you. I don't care who it is. I had a plan. But it's that, this, my will, our will. That's what I see. It's just my will, my control, my ideas of what I think is right and wrong, and this complete willingness. And that seems like so long ago, but just like this complete, healing. I can feel it right now as I'm speaking, just this total trust, seeing that God's will is our own will. That is the interference from him to be able to fully use us. And I just feel like just this, that seems so long ago, but now this opening to just totally being this full vessel, it's like, oh, then there's just this beautiful, it's like we are just like a feather then. There's no interference anymore. There's ideas and thoughts and beliefs, it's just all the past. And then living in the holy instant of an experience, like, oh my word, just that it's, words can't even describe it. It just is this, you want to continue to open into this holy instant, letting go completely. And no more words, but just knowing that, that authority problem, how strong it is and how important it is to be able to bring the darkness to the light. And that's what the expression sessions are about. That's what one-on-ones are about, to be able to face it together. But then also being willing to see it differently, willingness. I remember you used to say this to me, and I love that. You said, Holy Spirit, choose God for me when I'm too resistant. I'm too resistant right now, but Holy Spirit, choose God for me. Help me. I'm in too much resistance. And just that willingness to even ask that, when you're in that intensity, it's like, I want to see this differently. It's like, it's going to take a determination to see it differently. I'd rather be happy.
Yeah, I think in a lot of Eastern philosophies, non-dual philosophies, there's a lot of talk about non-attachment. Some of you who've studied a lot of the deep teachings, the Vedantas, everything's about non-attachment. How does that fit with forgiveness? Well, Jesus is saying that forgiveness is simply seeing the false as false. He's saying among all these images, there's no hierarchy of illusions. The meaning of illusion is not real. So how could one not real be more important than another not real? That fits perfect with all the great Indian teachings on non-attachment. And I think for me, this is where you really come down to the true depth of forgiveness. I was on YouTube last night and I typed in Jesus of Nazareth, and up came all these scenes from the very famous movie. It's Franco Zeffirelli. It's over 6 hours long. But when I typed in Jesus of Nazareth, then all these different scenes, and then one of them I went down, scrolled down, and it said Last Supper. So it was Jesus with the apostles in the Last Supper. I said, oh, let's review this scene again, the Last Supper of Jesus with the apostles. So I pushed play, and there was Jesus, and it was a big party. They were dancing, and there was lots of happiness and party, and Jesus was kind of quietly sitting with his back against the wall. And then finally, after the party died down a little, the apostles came and gathered around him, and Peter came right next to him, and then Jesus very calmly started to say things like, in a while I will be with you no longer. A very short while I won't be with you. Well, that sent a ripple. You imagine you're having dinner with your master, and your master's, sipping some drink and saying very matter-of-factly, very nonchalantly, very commonly, I'm not going to be with you much longer. That kind of got them stirred up, and basically Peter, who was sitting right next to Jesus, said, Lord, wherever you're going, I'm going with you. And he's like, no, Peter. Where I'm going, you're not ready to go. Peter was very upset. He was like, he was protesting to show his loyalty. No, I tell you, I will go with you wherever you go. And Jesus was very calm, and he just kind of calmly looked over at Peter, and he said, before the cock crows, the rooster, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. You will deny that you even know me. Now this is where we start to get down to the authority problem. We have a human being that's right next to Jesus who's wanting to profess his loyalty, like, no, wherever you're going to go, I'm going with you. And Jesus is saying, you're not ready. There will come a time when you will lead others to me. He was talking about, Peter was the one that Jesus said, Peter is a rock, I'll build my church. St. Peter was the one that the church rose up to teach the teachings of Jesus. But at that moment was in the Last Supper. He was basically saying, no, you'll deny that you even know me 3 times before the cock crows. And then that really sent Peter off. No, Lord. He was now going to convince Jesus that he knew more than Jesus. And so then he started protesting quite loud. No, never. Peter looked at Jesus and said, never. That's how offended he was that Jesus would even say, before the cock crows, you will deny that you even know me 3 times. Now this just showed me, when I watched that scene last night, I thought, wow, that just shows how thick the ego's mesmerism is. It goes beyond personal loyalty. It goes beyond the loyalty of seemingly been with Jesus for 3 years. The apostles were with him for 3 years of public teaching. And then here down in this final Last Supper that they're having is suddenly the unconscious mind. It was coming up, like you were saying, it was coming up for Peter like, no, never. He looked right Jesus in the eye and says, never. Like almost like in front of everybody here saying, I'm going to deny that I even know you? Never. But Jesus was in a state of mind that is just so absolutely connected and one, that realized, no, this isn't about the words. It isn't about what the scenes that will seem to come next. This is about how much God loves us, that we all are connected in spirit. And nothing that you can say or do in form will change that love. That this is about seeing the false as false. The Christ was in such a state of mind that it could just look upon the world of images, this theater, this play I'm calling the Last Supper, and it could just look upon that with the same detachment and the same glowing love as any other scene of like taking a walk on a sunny day with the apostles. It was the same thing of saying, I'm not going to be with you that much longer. Because, as I've said about the cross, we're here to have the vertical beam, the vertical perspective of the cross, the right-mindedness, the forgiveness of truly seeing that the images can't tell us who we are. Because God, as Spirit, created us as the Christ, and these images cannot fool us. That's what Jesus was really teaching, that don't be fooled by what the images say or do. Don't be fooled into believing you can be mistreated. He says that in the Course, beware of the temptation to perceive yourself unfairly treated. Wow, is that a deep temptation? That's been a defining temptation of our whole life. I was mistreated. My parents could have treated me better. My siblings could have treated me better. My coworkers. And then I go through all this, I come to a Course in Miracles community, and you'd think the people at the Course in Miracles community would treat me with love. Don't they know the Pat Benatar song, Treat Me Right, dun dun dun. It's like, if I can't get treated fairly at a Course in Miracles mystery school, what chance? What chance do I have? But see, Jesus is with us inside saying, keep coming to me. I know how strong you are. I know you're a child of God. I know your innocence. I know your strength. I know your perfection. Your perfection. God created you perfect. And that is in spirit. So, to me, this is why we have expression sessions. There are more sessions of allowance. It's more like, allow it on up, allow all of it up, allow any of it up. I remember we had a road trip. We had a friend years ago named Stu, who said, hey, I'm following you guys on the internet and I'm loving it. And I've got a house out in Northern California and you're welcome to just come right on in, take over my house and have one of those retreats at my house. It's a nice big house. It's got a lot of acres. So Lisa and a group of us went out there, and I remember when I was out at that house one day, I was in my bedroom just praying and meditating, and they were getting ready for the daily lunch expression session. And I wasn't really feeling hungry. I was just praying in my room, meditating. But then the Holy Spirit said, go to the lunch. So I actually got up, went down the hall, and came in, and they were having soup and maybe some other toast and a few other things. So I went over and I got my bowl and I scooped myself some soup, and I looked, it was a big square table, and there was only one spot on the corner that has one chair left, and I went, oh, there's my spot. So I came and I took my soup and I sat down, and I sat there, and it was an expression session. The woman sitting next to me, I just started having my soup. I was taking the spoon up and just starting eating. She went into full-blown rage. She started taking her fist and pounding on the table, and my bowl was going like this. And somebody apparently got their iPhone out and started filming the whole thing. I think Jenny or somebody. And so I sat there and enjoyed my meal because I was guided to have some lunch, and it was an expression. So I sat there, and the video, I think it's still on the internet, is me. You could hear the bowl and the silverware clanking as she's with both fists pounding, hammering the table. And I'm like, I look like the Buddha. I wasn't even looking at her, I just... And to me, some people, a few people said, I think Diana was,
That's what brought her
yeah,
here,
she
right?
said the reason that she actually came to the community was she saw that that film on the internet. She said, whatever that is, I, I want to go toward that. Because I had absolutely no reaction. And it was like a storm. It came and it went. It was total allowance for it all, and she ended up just coming very calm through the whole thing. You were there. You remember that?
I think it went to the end where she even kind of just settled down.
Yeah,
and
yeah. It got very
was
quiet.
like, oh
very
my
still.
word, just that came right into this stillness with it all. Yeah, really beautiful.
But these are just examples of what I'm talking about. Like, forgive means see the false as false. Because we're never really upset by what's happening. We're only upset by our interpretation of what's happening. Obviously, if Jesus, went through the whole thing carrying the cross, and they hammered the spikes in his arms and his legs, and then reportedly from the cross he said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." That doesn't really sound like an angry expression. That's quite meek. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. And in the context of having blood pouring down from your arms and legs and having spikes driven through, and you're hanging on a wooden cross, that seems like a pretty extraordinary statement. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. It must have been from a state of mind of forgiveness. Must have been from complete non-attachment, from seeing the false as false, from realizing that there are no appearances that can change what God created as one in spirit. God created Christ as spirit, and even if you fall asleep and have amnesia and forget that you're the Christ, still you must always have it within you to remember. That was the movie The Lion King. That was my favorite scene, when Simba goes way off to the far lands, leaves the Pride lands and goes way off, and then when Narla comes to get him, and when he's coming back, his father, Mufasa, who's passed away, is just this voice of James Earl Jones in the sky. Remember, remember. That's all it takes, is that. And then he's able to look into the pond and see a reflection, and the monkey, Rafiki, is saying, look deeper, because he's saying, that's just my reflection in a pond. That's the surface reflection. If you look at in the mirror, you see the image reflected back. But Jesus is telling us, remember who you are. Remember who created you. Remember that time and space can never really trick you, because it didn't trick me. He was tempted to believe in the same world, in the same illusion. And he was saying, just remember, I remembered the truth. You can remember it too. It's destined. It's inevitable. The trick cannot last, because God's will is more powerful than a trick. God's will is forever. So that's powerful. These kind of scenes are just reminding us, oh yeah, that's the larger context. That's what this is all about. It's not about whether I can do the task right, or if I meet my quota, or if I impress somebody, or if I prove something. Those are all ego motivations, because they're all on the timeline. They're all horizontal. Yeah. Sweet. Well, I think I see Alma Rodriguez has got waving a hand. Maybe she can get the ball rolling for us. We have virtual hands. You don't even have to use a digital hand in the room. You could just use one of the good old-fashioned. But maybe Alma, you could share what's on your heart, because I happened to look at the screen and there I saw your digital hand up there.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. And Lisa, David, or Francis, any one of you who can answer these doubts I have. And I want to say hi to all the team who works in this kind of retreat, because I know it's a lot of work. I'm sure it is. And let me tell you something. In 1979, I knew my husband at university. We've been friends 2.5 years, and then 7.5 years, I don't know, novios in Spanish, I don't know in English. So we get married in 1989. So we have 32 years of marriage. And the interesting thing is, I don't know, maybe when we have the 15 years of marriage, I was sitting in my bed and at our house. And let me tell you something. David calls David's parable. I call this Maya, the Netflix series, Alma's Netflix series. Okay. So in this Alma's Netflix series, Alma was sitting there, and after 15 years of marriage, and 10 years of before that with Ramiro, he enters to the bedroom, and Alma was sitting there, and she saw this man and said, "Who is this man? Who is this person?" But Alma was not fear. I felt, or Alma felt, not fear, like, oh, it's a thief or something in my house. No, no, no. So Ramiro and said, "Who is this man?" And then a voice inside her head said, "Remember, it's Ramiro. He was your boyfriend. You knew him at the university, and now you're married, and you have 2 kids, and things like that." And then Alma said, "Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah." But the strange thing is, 10 years later, the same thing happened, or I don't know if the film rewind and happens again. Let me close in this. Good happened, yeah. And it happened again. Alma was sitting in her bed in the same room. Ramiro gets in the room, and Alma gets, "Who is this person?" And this boy said again, I don't know, 10 years of marriage, the 10 years of marriage, and I don't know, later to 25, I don't know, 7 years ago. And she says, "Who is this man?" And then the voice again said the same. "Remember, Ramiro is your husband. You have this nice house. He's a pediatrician, and you have 2 kids." And then, oh yeah, 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 yeah. And I was thinking, well, Jesus talked to me and talked to everybody of us, I think, and through the Holy Spirit and God through them, but we are ready to listen or not. But it was the ego who was telling me this, remember? Because then I was with this doubt all the time, and another things more, and I was always worried why is happening to the world. We are parasites of the human beings, are parasites of the world, because we are destroying it, and worry about everything, always, of course, about my kids and everything. Then 2 years ago, when this episode and this of the famous coronavirus begins, and all this thing, story inside the matrix or Maya, for me, happened. Another invitation from Jesus reached me, and I to the course in miracles, and I get in, and then I hear, this is a dream. And that was my moment. Because of course, all the things that I don't understand in normal life and regular life in the matrix, everybody, how is it possible that this happened? How is there's no coherency? So when I heard, I think it was you did it surely, because I didn't say Goldger and Francis principally, all your conferences and everything, your talks, and I said, of course, the only way that everything, and that 2 times that thing happened to me, can be coherent is because this is a dream. In a dream, nothing has sense. You can be a little baby, and then you walk and you find your mother when she was a kid and play with her, and then you are a unicorn and you're flying and I don't know where. And that's the only explanation. And then I feel this peace inside. Oh my God, I said in a moment, I said, now I understand everything, all the marvel. There is a game here in Mexico where you throw the marbles and the marbles in the holes, you know, they get put in the holes, and all my marbles get in place. This is a dream, and that explains everything to me. And that was 2 years ago in February. And when I began to do the second invitation, the Course in Miracles, then that I said, okay, now I'm gonna do it. The first time I was a translator and I didn't pay attention, but now I did. And I'm glad, because now my life is changed. But my question after all this cha-la-la-la-la is, was that the ego speaking to me so clearly, like the cricket to Pinocchio? No, remember. And I say, hey, Jesus, why don't you talk to me like that? That clear in my head, because I can reach his signs, and I pray, and because you said, first, don't do and then ask. First ask and then do. Follow the guidance. And that's what I missed doing, I don't know, 3 months ago, that because I was, you know, a little busy with all these things. And I say, well, was it and the answer is, and the question is, was it the ego or that voice? I projected it. I don't know. That's not very important meant to me to know that. But now that I'm here and I have the opportunity to ask you that and to tell my experience in my Netflix series, I want to know, any one of you who wants to answer, I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you, Alma. You're just so delightful. When I'm watching you, I'm thinking back to a show I watched many years ago called Saturday Night Live, and Weekend Update, and you remind me of Rosanna Dana. She would always have this big long thing, and then finally one of the other people, Jane Curtin or whatever, would say a simple answer, and then she'd go, oh, never mind, after she gave the whole thing. But yeah, of course that was the ego. You had a glitch in the Matrix, like the movie The Matrix, the first Matrix, you know, with the cat that goes by a couple times, and they're wondering, Neo's like wondering what was that, and they said, no, that was a glitch in the Matrix. You had a glitch in the Matrix that for an instant you were in a kind of a mystical state of mind where you were non-affiliated with people, places, things, with Alma, with your partner. You were just in that state of dreaming. And then the ego rushed in to immediately say, no, don't you remember, and brought all the past to kind of soothe you and say, no, you're the role. You're the role. But you're not the role. You're the dreamer. You're not the role. It reminds me of this movie we saw recently where I did commentary on, The Truman Show, where as soon as things start to happen, the serious light comes down and lands on the road, and then the announcer says, a plane flew by and was shedding parts. When he has things happening like he sees his father, and then a lady comes and they whisk him away and they force him onto a bus, they say, they talk about the homeless problem of homeless people they always explain away. In The Truman Show, the ego tries to explain away the mystical experience, explain the glitch away, because the ego doesn't want the mind to wake up. If the mind would keep going in that direction of that state of mind, the world would disappear. And that the ego doesn't want. Now, your other part of your question was, you were saying, I want Jesus to talk to me. Come on, Jesus, you talk to me like that. Give me your guidance. And Jesus does say in the Course, he says that you have to have the willingness to hear. He says there are many answers you have received but have not heard, because the ego fog is so thick that it doesn't want the mind to hear guidance. It doesn't want the mind to take its unwinding steps to be free, like Truman, to leave the Truman Show. It wants to keep the game going and all the characters going, and he wants to keep the seriousness. But like you realized, nothing ever makes sense in a dream. And the very first workbook lesson of A Course in Miracles is, nothing I see means anything. That Jesus has got his workbook lessons designed to take you back for more than a glitch. He's like saying, we're going for more than a glitch. The glitch was like a glimpse of where we're going with forgiveness, but we have to make it stable now. We have to transfer the training to all situations and all people. So thank you. That's a perfect way to start us off at the Tabula Rasa interaction. And now you've got that smile on your face, that never mind. Rosanna, Dana. Never mind. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, how adorable. It's a comedy show too. That was a great comedy show. Saturday Night Live. Well, anyone?
Maybe there's someone in our live audience.
In our live audience, and anyone
up there?
We have a microphone. Oh, I see. Is it Victoria is waving on the top row on the right? There's Victoria. I saw Victoria waving.
Unmute. There we go. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. So Alma's story reminded me of, it was very recent. Yesterday, I was at the doctor's office and was having my blood drawn, and I fainted twice. I came to a little bit, and then I fainted again. And I just had this experience of just timelessness and peace. And but then when I came to, there were all these people like leaning in on me and, trying to move my body around. And it was, the mind immediately wants to go to, all the fear and what's wrong and, what caused this and blah, blah, blah. But, listening to Alma and her experience of just spacing out made me realize that, I could focus on all the fears around my body, or I could focus on the experience I had of timelessness and peace. So I just wanted to share that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Victoria. You know, over these last few decades, I have had so many experiences myself and so many beloveds who have shared their experiences with me, and at first they can be kind of shocking to the ego, because the ego believes in the reality of what's happening, and it will have its whole story. You fainted, that's dangerous. You know, it has a whole story and purpose behind everything for its own purpose, you know, to try to seem to exist. But I remember when, in the early years, when I met Lisa, and she was unwinding from a nursing career, but and having a company that staffed nurses. But I remember there was a time where Lisa was telling me that she was with a patient, and she was kind of put in charge. This was when she had nurses training. She was being trained as a nurse, and she was with this patient, and she turned away for a moment. She looked back, and the woman had fallen and hit her forehead on a very sharp edge of a table. And so Lisa said, "Oh my gosh," and she went over there, and the woman turned, and her face peeled off. Her whole, it had cut so much across her forehead, and this was just a patient that Lisa was with, that the whole face, it would be like wearing a Halloween mask, and then the forehead just dropped down over the lower part, just like this, just flipped right down like that. And then Lisa's reaction was, "Oh!" You know, she just absolutely freaked out. And I've had people that have worked in emergency rooms that have had experiences on the battlefield when they were during a war. They have, even in the middle of what seems an extreme experience in the dream, as the ego would interpret it, there is this choice for a miracle, which is to be calm and to just let the spirit come through. That's what a lot of the experiences you had when you were going through nursing, they were very miraculous, actually, when you look at them now.
Yeah, because that situation with that woman, I mean, literally there was blood splattered everywhere, and her face was her forehead was like over her face, and it was, you know, when I very first got the course, so I was like really paying attention to how I was feeling and just really getting present with this body image and everything, and so I'm running around, and I called the supervisor, and I'm like, "Oh my God, you know, I don't know what to do with this situation." And so she came in, and we actually, I'm like projecting all this stuff onto this patient, and then it was interesting. The supervisor said, "Well, lift the flap up." And I'm like, "Oh my God," you know, so I had to take this piece of skin and just flap it back up. And when I did, she was laughing. She was like underneath this skin, she was going, and I'm like, "Okay." And I was like, "Okay, what's going on?" You know, and literally, like, she had this big smile on her face, like, and I was just like, "Oh my word," like that was all in my mind, like just even my own fear and this even responsibility that I needed to fix something, all these things in the whole thing. But yet my nursing career just was teaching me things over and over again, how it was just all happening in my mind. Yeah.
And what it does is it brings us back to that thing that we're never upset for the reason we think. That's lesson number 5. And basically, we never are upset with what's happening in front of us, with what our 5 senses are perceiving. It's our interpretation of what seems to be happening is where the upset occurs. And then Jesus, when you go much deeper into the Course, he will say that your interpretations and your perceptions are not separate. So he's slowly teaching us with his workbook that our mind is judging and interpreting, and we may even think that there's an external world where something is happening apart from our mind. And then we interpret, like initially Lisa's reaction was, oh, but that was coming from a perception of being a nurse. A nurse's training, you're responsible for the patients, and now suddenly one of your patients has their forehead drooping down over their mouth. It's kind of like your life has been like Lucille Ball. All these kind of extreme, if I was there, if you got a few weeks, I could tell you all the things that she's like lived through 6 lifetimes in one. But these are all extreme experiences, but they all for teaching that you have the power of interpretation. That's the one lesson that's underneath even these extreme, seeming extreme cases. So I remember one time I was out, and I think I was in a park, and there was a mother with her little toddler, and Holy Spirit was always teaching me really profound things from very simple occurrences. So I was watching the mother, I was watching the little toddler, and the toddler was going along, and it was like a pavement with some gravel on, and the little toddler was going along, toddling along, and then suddenly the toddler went down. The toddler went down hard and went down face first, and arms down, hands down, and everything. And I'm watching the situation, and then after it happened, the toddler turned to look up and see what Mom's reaction was to the event. The toddler looked up as if like, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? And the mother was so peaceful and so calm that she simply just very gently went down with her hands, and she put her hands to pull the toddler up with a big smile on her face, the mother had, and she just gently rubbed the toddler's hands together because there were some stones in there, and she said she was smiling and speaking gentle words the whole time. And I was watching the whole scene, and I looked. The initial look on the toddler's face was, is this good or bad? That's what the face was saying. I don't know. I do not know what anything is for. And then when the mother was in such a loving place, the toddler started smiling too. And it was as if nothing had gone wrong. Because the strength of the interpretation, it determines the situation. It's not like we're a human being that we have to face external situations. It's that our body and the world the body seems to exist in are part of a projection. And that projection is coming from our state of mind. We're either judging and interpreting it in a very personal way, which is the ego, and then we react emotionally in a huge, very different versions of fear. Fear, guilt, anxiety, depression, all those are just derivatives of the ego, of fear. But when we learn to train our minds to see the world without personal interpretation, which is to see the world with the Holy Spirit, then we remain calm. And that was like even you calling another nurse, a supervisor, someone, what do I do? What do I do? And she's like, well, let's put the flap back up. And then you saw the laughing face under the flap, which would seem to indicate it was all hilarious. There was nothing serious about hitting your head and having your face fall off. The laughing underneath the flap, the laughter was showing that you can laugh at anything. And if you can laugh when half your face falls off, then you know you can laugh at about anything. So I've found over the years too, it's like I feel like this gentle laughter in my heart and this very happy laughter inside of my mind, and yet Jesus would guide me to go to something like a funeral. And when you go to a funeral, it's not good to just stand up and start telling jokes and do your stand-up routine at the funeral, because the inner laughter is where the joke is. Jesus says it's a joke to think that time can come to circumvent eternity. He's poking fun at all of time and space. He's saying it's a joke to think time can come to circumvent eternity. But what I've found is, like, even when I would go to a funeral, I would just feel this happy laughter inside, because I wasn't experiencing that death was real. So I could go. But I was always used in ways that were very meek and gentle. At my grandmother's funeral, the woman who was doing the eulogy, she saw me there and she said, oh, I see Lillian's grandson is here. David, why don't you come up and say a few words about your grandmother? And then I went up there, and then literally Lillian spoke through me. She spoke about all the love, and people started crying at the funeral because they were there to honor Lillian, and I was being used as a vehicle or vessel for her to speak at her own funeral. That's just an example of a higher perspective instead of the ego's grieving perspective, loss, sacrifice, whatever its beliefs are around death. Those were not there. It was just the higher perspective of gratitude, love, appreciation that comes through. So these are pretty strong examples, but that, I think that fits in with, you had a glitch like Alma did. You had a glitch there yesterday where you seemed to faint, and then you felt so wonderful after you fainted that your mind started to just drift into a miracle state of mind. And then when you came back, the ego tried to hammer you and say, don't be feeling so good, because if you keep fainting, you could die. You see how the ego will always try to come in with its own fearful interpretation. But thank you, Alma and Victoria. You really started us off here today in the Tabula Rasa state of mind. Wow. Well, looks like we've...
5 hands.
Do you want to... I see Amber there. I don't think I've heard from Amber before. Maybe you could come on if you can... There you are. Hi, Amber.
Hi. Oh my God. I'm so happy to be talking to you, David. I love you so much. I haven't been to a retreat in a while. I went last year and it just filled me up and put me on cloud 9. You know, David, I have to tell you, you're the only person. Okay, so I started studying A Course in Miracles when I was 16 years old. And then 4 years later, when I was 20 years old, I had what the Course calls a revelation, and experienced that. And I didn't know at the time that that's what it was called, but I continued to read the book, you know, through my adult life. And I realized, oh, okay, there's a name for what that was. Profoundly wonderful, absolutely terrific experience. And you're the only other person that I've met or come in contact with who's also experienced revelation, because I like to look, I want to talk about it with people. Sometimes I look on YouTube and I look for people who've had what they call NDEs, near-death experiences, or people who have flatlined and, you know, been pronounced legally dead and then gone to the other side. Either they see the light or they have a heavenly dream. In my experience, I was doing this mental diet. Really, I had a bad voice in my head. It was just my ego really trying to mess with me. I was a young girl, you know, about 19 years old. And I decided to do this mental diet where I just would starve myself of negative thoughts and gorge myself on positive thoughts. I did this for 7 days. And on the 7th day, my mind seemed to be a friendly place again. And I took a nap. I woke up from the nap. I went to walk into the bathroom to wash my face. And when I entered the bathroom, instead of seeing the bathroom, all I saw was just an endless pool of the brightest white light, brighter than I can possibly imagine. And I stepped inside and felt like I was stepping into just this endless cushion of perfect love and truth and goodness and beauty and God. And the possibility of fear and pain became completely impossible. And I realized, oh, I'm home, like my life from the day I was born had just been a dream. Everything that the book has been telling me all this time has been true, but there's no way I could have gotten it from reading the book. I really had to have this experience in order to get it, like, oh, it's real. I'm awake now. And I've been at home the whole time. I've been in God's custody, in God's heart and God's mind the whole time. And God had been, so I had this experience. It lasts about a minute. And with each passing instant, I feel 10 times as good as I felt the moment before, and 10 times as wise, as loving, as loved, as close, as beautiful, as connected to everyone else in the world. And it was just like God was thinking for me. I wasn't doing my own thinking. I was allowing God's thought to just be the conscious thought in my mind. And I loved it. And I thought that this was, I don't know how I made it here, but I thought, yay, I'm home forever. And this is just my experience from now through eternity. And it was just profound and wonderful. And then I had this thought, which was that, my own thought sort of snuck in there. And the thought was, if only I had known that this was the truth, if only I'd known that God's love was supporting me and all my life was sustained by the love of God, like the workbook says, that there was all this love and divine support available to me at every moment, that there was such beauty, was the truth. If only I'd known reality was so true and everything else just a dream, I would have lived my life differently. I would have been kinder to my mother, because I would have realized she's not my creator. She's just a fellow dreamer. And I have a creator who can give me all the love I need. And I would have moved confidently in the direction of my dreams, because I would have known my creator supports me in everything I do. And as soon as I had that thought, snap, I was back in the bathroom. I saw the tile, the shower, the sink, and I was, David, I was really upset. I was really ticked off about that. I wanted to spend forever in God's presence. But the good news was I continued this mental diet. I continued starving myself of the negative thoughts and gorging myself on positive ones, and reading the Course in Miracles. And I'd been reading the Course in Miracles in kind of an angry space, but now I was able to read it and hear the love that was in it, because it always felt like Jesus was yelling at me, and telling me, you're so crazy, you're so wrong, you're the problem. And now I was reading it like, yeah, I'm crazy, I'm so wrong, I'm the problem, so I've got the power, but he loved me. And so I continued this diet, and then for the rest of that year, I just lived in bliss. I just lived on cloud nine. I loved everyone I met. I made friends everywhere. I deepened my friendships. I made up with my mother, who I'd had a contentious relationship with. And it was just a heaven on earth kind of existence. And it only stopped because I stopped practicing those thoughts. I started getting into listening to the voice of the world and the ego and paying attention to I got involved with a guy who was bad news, is what happened. And so it sort of wasn't a good idea. But since then, I've had these experiences again. I get back on track and so forth. And life becomes like a heavenly dream again. But it's been a while since then. Right now, my life is not so extreme. It's not so up and down. So, either terrible depression or high highs. It's just been sort of a pleasant, plateau. But I noticed I had a skin problem, like right at my crown chakra right here. You can't see it. But to me, that was a sign that my body was telling me you need to pay attention to, your spiritual life. And I jumped on my email and I saw you were giving this online retreat. I said, oh, it's tomorrow. I'm signing up. I'm not going to sleep in late tomorrow. I'm going to go see David and Francis. And I've seen Lisa before, and go get plugged in again, So I don't know why I raised my hand except to tell you that I love you and I'm happy and I'm grateful. And if anyone else has ever had a revelation, I'd love to talk to you about yours. I'll leave my email in the chat or something like that. And thank you for doing what you're doing. I am going to come and visit you in one of these houses that you have around the world. And it's because I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the challenge, but there's nothing more important to me than waking up. And I know that Jesus said, sometimes people wake up at the moment of death, and they realize, oh, I'm not interested in any of these things I was interested in before, and then they're free. But it would be nice if I could wake up even before then. So thank you, and I'll let you get back to your speech.
Swiss. Thank you, Amber. Well, it's good. Leave your email in the chat. Maybe you can call it Revelations Anonymous. That's what these anonymous groups are great for, because people come together who have had really profound experiences, but need an opportunity to strengthen it by just sharing what it is, how deeply touching it was. And I think you had a good point when you said, when you were in the bathroom and had that revelation, the only thing that brought you back to the world, to the timeline, was that if only thought. And that I have done YouTubes and lots of teachings over these last decades on hypotheticals, that a hypothetical is an if only. And you had the if only was kind of like, if only I had lived my life this way and treated my mother better and really seen she was just a dream figure and not this thing that I thought she was. But I remember years before the Course came, my grandfather, whose name keeps showing up, Heinrich, I keep having all these Henriks and Heinrichs that's showing up everywhere in my life now. I think it's my grandfather saying, I'm with you, I'm with you. But he would sit with me, and I would be watching sports shows or something on TV, and I was getting all emotionally hung up and caught up in the game and which team I was rooting for, and upset at the referees and on and on. And he would raise one finger to me with a big smile on his face and little twinkly eyes. And I would look at him like, what? Because I was all upset with what I was judging on the TV screen. He would raise his one finger and he would say, if, largest word in the English language. And I would be like, what's he talking about? But he was teaching me about hypotheticals. If only things were different. If only I had known this before. If only the referee, I would say, if the referee hadn't blown the call, my team would be ahead by 10 points. But he was teaching me, and he still, that's the presence of love, teaching us to learn, to practice, to be present, and realize that things are always exactly as they're meant to be. And Jesus says this in the Course, in the workbook. Ramana Maharshi says it in different ways. If something's not meant to happen, there's nothing that you can do to make it happen. And if something is meant to happen, there's nothing you can do to avoid it or not make it happen. It's just teaching us to be present. That's what the present moment does. It just shows us that we're it. We've always been it. And in the dreaming of it, we are free. And that's what your revelation was showing you too. So, thank you. We love you, Amber. Hope to see you. Yeah, hope to see you soon. Woo! Well, do we have any time left? We've got We've got about 15 minutes. Yeah. I see. Wow, we've got all kinds of people here lined up here. What about Jason? Jason Kim.
Hello, I'm going to speak slowly for the translators. I don't know if we have translators or not, but yeah, David, can you hear me?
Yeah, there's no translators today, so you can just rattle on.
I can talk fast.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so there's so many things that came up during this, and Amber was sharing what Living Miracles has done for her, and I just want to say ditto. I mean, this is my home. I really feel like this is my home base. This is my home base. I went through undergraduate. Eckhart Tolle was my undergraduate advisor, and now I'm in graduate school, and David Hoffmeister is my graduate advisor. And that's kind of the way I look at it now, because, you know, Jesus, when he wrote a course, you know, it was like, oh, finally, somebody has like lessons. Somebody has the text, you know, and then you just got to work through the lessons. It's just so it's helpful to me, because having been in school for decades, I needed something that was linear, you know, even though in Buddhism, you know, the Buddha talked about how the Eightfold Path is just a spoke in a wheel, and they're all working together at the same time. You know, I'm going to put my email in there too for Amber, because I've had so many experiences. I even had a healing experience last weekend. I've been suffering from extreme back pain for a long time, for about a year and a half now. And I tried everything, and I was in a lot of pain. It was at night. And I just was sitting at the edge of my bed, and I put my head down and I said, Jesus, Holy Spirit, please. I didn't say heal my back. I said heal my perception of my pain, please. And I had all this energy go down right where the pain was. And it lasted about a minute or two. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And there's no explanation for that. How could it target exactly the pain? How could some experience target exactly the pain? And anyway, that was a beautiful, I don't know if that's a symbol or a miracle. I'm not real clear on the terminology yet, but, and I have been going to 12-step groups online, saying, hello, I'm Jason, grateful to be in recovery. I'm very careful not to say I am an alcoholic, because that's not what I am. It's a condition that my mind is suffering from. And I learned that from Eckhart, and he actually came out and finally said, you are not an alcoholic. But, and I say, I have a perceptual problem and an addiction to linear time. And it goes over so many heads. Nobody's like, oh, you can't say that. You know, 12-step groups can have some dogma and some, oh, we can't change the book, we can't update it and all this stuff. So, but, you know, it just coincides so well with the 12 steps. You know, this Tabula Rasa, I've been using that. I've said Tabula Rasa in the meetings at least a dozen times, blank slate, at least a dozen times. And I'm sure they're thinking, wow, this guy reads a lot. No, I got that from you. You know, people think I'm wise. I'm not wise. I'm just a parrot that's trying to incorporate some of these principles into my bird life. So yeah. So what else? Gosh, I know I'm going to forget something. I'm going to go, oh, I forgot to say that. But I also want to come down. I've been wanting to come down. And oh, I know what the most important thing I have to share with you, David, and Francis and Lisa, is I have a completely different view now of my estrangement from my daughter. It's been over 2 years. And when yesterday, the thought of my daughter came to me for the first time, I felt joy. I felt gratitude, because about a month and a half ago, I had a vision. I was so sad and I was crying, or I was just depressed, I think. And Jesus came to me in a vision, and he was holding my daughter when she was a toddler. She's 20 now. And he said, we'll be waiting for you. Just just keep going. Don't worry about your daughter. Just keep going. Now I see it as things are happening for me, not to me. And when I look at it like that, it's like, oh, I don't have any responsibilities with my daughter. She's got her stepdad, her mom. I'm free. My mind was so attached to my relationship with my daughter, feeling like there was loss. I suffered. And that's what it took for me to hit my bottom and finally really just focus on me. And I feel like the pandemic was for me. I needed a home retreat for 1 year. And I stayed home. We couldn't really go anywhere. And hours and hours and hours of listening to you and Francis and Eckhart. Sometimes I'll listen to Muji and Rupert. But that's what I love about A Course in Miracles, is we can go talk to people who are doing Vedanta, who are practicing Buddhism, who are doing mystical Christianity. There's no boundaries. There's no boundaries. There's not either you're with us or you're with them, or we believe this, so you got to go to this denomination. It's just freedom, pure freedom. And I remember, I remember exactly what Jesus said when that miracle happened with my back. It still comes and goes. I'm doing Rolfing now, which has been very helpful. He said, don't worry about your body so much, and don't worry about your daughter. Just trust and just keep going. And it just happened. It was such a beautiful experience. And I don't want to make too big of a deal of it, because it's just a symbol I'm on the right path. That's all it is. These things happen all day, but it's been tough. It's been tough. So I just want to thank you guys. Seema says hi to everyone here. She just recorded and released her book, Physician Heal Thyself, audio. So she has it on Audible now. So I'm just listening to her talk about the placebo effect. I always thought, I worked in clinical trials for so long, and I always thought, why don't we just figure out the placebo effect? Because that'll work for everything. Instead of spending billions of dollars on research on specific medicines, just heal the mind, And so thank you so much. You guys have saved my life. Well, I am life, but you have saved my mind.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Oh, how sweet. That's good. See how one question, why don't we discover what's underneath the placebo effect, takes you into your mind, and then Jason's like, I am life. Okay, that's putting the answer to the placebo effect. I am life. I love it. Well, we have time maybe for one more. Do you see? Maybe
Maria. Never heard of
Maria?
Is that
Maria?
Maria?
Hi, Maria.
I've been listening to you, David, and hi, Lisa, and hi, for a long time, and I was always thinking, should I do this? Should I? And last night at 11 p.m. in New York City, I am going through my Facebook and I see like, October 1st. When is that? And it's like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So here I am.
Tabula Rasa.
It's the first one and it's not gonna be the last one. So mwah. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maria. That's beautiful. Well, that's good. We love to hear that. And I think maybe we can go to Dirk. We've got more time, Dirk. Maria came flashing through like a comet in the night with her happiness.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Oh, happy to be to have this opportunity to say thank you and to say hello. So this I'm grateful to be here and to hear all these ideas now as Jason spoke about his daughter. It was a teaching for me because of my own daughter. She's 21 and it's similar to his situation. So there are so many examples. Yeah, and I thought maybe about a prayer, not to take this world and all these figures so serious. So to learn to be happy and joyful and to accept all things. So, and I thought about my working situation, and in my work there are many situations or many people who seemingly trigger me. So it's a huge pool of healing stuff in it, and I feel it. It comes so much up, and this huge fear not to be right, not to do the right things, or not to be interested in outcomes. And to be honest, yes, I'm not interested in outcomes. And that's seems to be, or it seems to be causing such fear. And yeah, that's my prayer. Therefore, not to see it differently, and not to take this world and these figures or this reasons here in this world so serious. Yeah, and that for me to see that it is always the right place where I am. For example, in my work, for example, the people I am with while I'm working or while I am being there, and because I think my ego tells me almost all the time it's wrong. I'm wrong here. I'm do not the right things, and so that's a lot of stuff for me to accept, and yeah. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, so that's my prayer, not to take it so seriously, and to use or to let Jesus use all these situations, and there are so many miracles, so many things are going on, and I have no control. On the, I feel it. I have no control. But on the other hand, I have still fear. I feel this fear or rage. This afternoon, there was a situation, and I felt rage because I'm not leading the situation, and I stepped back, or I had to step back, and wow, to learn, let it go, how it goes, or what the colleagues are doing. It's not my stuff, and yeah, it's rage as well. Yeah, to be annoyed, to be in rage, and to be in fear. I wish I could enjoy my work like this here, to be with you, and to see it in the same way, for my healing, for our healing, that I'm not separated from you, that you are all here, all my brothers here and sisters are me, and I love to think this, and to grow in this. That feels good. Yeah, and I pray to transfer it, and to find all these signs and guidance to go through it with you, and with all your stuff and all your teachings. Yes, so thank you that there was time for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Dirk. Thank you, Dirk. And Maria, you made time there for Dirk to share such a precious prayer with all of us. You know, sometimes it's interesting to look at the metaphors and symbols in nature. When you think of like a flower just being in one position, and all those weather conditions, wind and rain and sun, and then the leaves start falling by it, and the dog or the cat walks by, and all these things, and the flower is just there, just very, very steady, just experiencing everything and everyone and everything around it, you know, in a place of graciousness, just giving its beauty and its fragrance, giving its gift. And in many parts of the world, this is fall, autumn, so in many parts of the world, the leaves are falling off the trees, and the trees aren't crying and grieving, and why have you left me? When will you be back? Am I supposed to continue on without you? Where are you going? To the ground? You're going to the grass and leaving me. You know, we can start to see in terms of nature the humor of the idea of loss, or I was the tree, I was leading, but now you're on the ground, and the ground is leading now, and you've left me. You know, you can start to see all these stories that the ego makes up and projects onto the world. So I join you in the prayer, Dirk. We're all right with you. We could all feel your heart, and we're all going to just stay in this experience of our love and our connectedness, and face whatever arises that needs to be released. So thank you. Wow, what preciousness. Well, I think we've kicked off our weekend retreat, and I think maybe one of you can share a bit about what's coming tonight, because we've got an amazing experience. A lot of our mystery school students are going to have an opportunity to share some of their experiences with Colin.
Right. Tonight we're gonna jump in again to the Tabula Rasa, and Colin is first. Me and Colin are gonna just join a little bit, and then we're gonna spontaneously see. There's a couple people that are gonna share about their experience here and what they're going through. So, yeah. It's the living experience, what's happening right now here at La Casa. So
it will be in 7 hours. It will be tonight.
Okay.
Central Time 7.
Yeah.
So thank you all for joining us. We're all with each other. We're all in this together, and we love you so dearly.